Civil rights movement. Well, I obviously grew up in the North, and a lot of the problems were happening in the South, right? But everybody knew Martin Luther King. Let me tell you, he was plastered on the newspaper, again on TV, which was black and white, of course. But it was a horrible thing. I mean, but to me, it felt like it was so far away and kind of hard to believe that there was a part of our country that actually fought like that, right? But at that time, I was in junior high school. Okay, the classes were broken up. For example, if you was in 7th grade, you know, they would have 10 classes. No, actually 20 classes. They would have 7-1, 7-2, 7-3, and so on and so forth, right? The lower the number, the smarter you were considered. So in other words, if you were in 7-1, then you were among the top. Oh, no, but there was also a 7-0, which was the top. Now, the problem with that class was that the Caucasians and the whites were in that class, and Hispanics and blacks were normally way up in the higher numbers. And then you had the other kids who just came into the country, okay? And they were very smart kids. But because they didn't speak the language, they were normally put in ridiculously high numbers, like 7-19, and they were looked upon as retarded or handicapped. So that's how the structure was. But I was fortunate enough to be in the lower numbers. I was actually in 7-5. And you were sort of discriminated that way, okay? Like, they'll say, oh, what class were you in? And you'd say 7-13. And then they just look at you like you're some kind of dummy. So, yeah, there was this racism, though, that I witnessed. There was this teacher, right, and he was always on my case. And I was a good student. I mean, I didn't bother anyone, so I wasn't a bad person. But yet, this teacher, and it just wasn't me, but we noticed that he would pick on the minorities.
The civil rights movement was a good thing. In fact, a very good thing. It's a shame of what had happened.
Well, I thought Martin Luther King was an amazing inspiration. I did a lot of stuff with him, you know? I really thought things were going to change. That's like, there's a few nuggets. And we're stripping America to hear the world. And his nuggets is something that, he studied Gandhi.
Martin Luther King was a brilliant man. We benefited 40 years later from his foresight and the vision that he led to. He was an intelligent man, a graduate of Morehouse. When people are afraid of the power that you stand for, unfortunately, things like the assassination can happen.
Boy, if nobody's gonna go up, then I really think it was a sad thing when he was assassinated. It was a foolish thing too. It really set the nation back towards integration and giving a lot of people equal rights. And the worst part of it is that his children had to grow up knowing that his father was assassinated just for doing something right.
Martin Luther King, he was a really good man. He was really good. He got shot in the hotel in Memphis, and it was just really sad. The government didn't handle it well at all. They blamed the wrong guy. They never caught the guy that killed him. He got away.
Well, a lot of people seem to think that racism was confined to the South. But at least in the South, it was more of an open racism. Here in the North, everything was more subtle, and in some ways it was much worse. Schools, I went to Franklin K. Lane, and at the time that I went to Franklin K. Lane, 16% of Franklin K. Lane was a minority. I remember I turned around one time, and it was a math class. I remember the teacher's name, but I won't bring it up right now. But all the students, they were raising their hands. It was something that they did not understand. And I'm going to show you how covert the racism was. So I raised my hand, and the teacher acknowledged me, and I asked him a question in relation to the problem that he was presenting. And he said to me, "It's in the book." Now, I would not shy away from the fact that the reason why I got that kind of answer is because the school is mostly white. There was a lot of racism in New York. If you were like me, you know, I had a variety of jobs. The telephone company, that was in the mid-'60s. I remember getting out of the van in South Brooklyn, tools hanging around my waist. The lady rang the doorbell, a lady in her, a white woman. She came out, she said, "What do you want?" And I said, "I'm here, New York Telephone Company, I came to fix your phone." And I never forget what she said to me. She said, "No niggas coming into my house." Now, naturally, I was a little taken aback. So I called up my foreman and told him the story. And what was interesting, what the phone company did, is they kept sending a black person to that woman's house. And finally, after the 11th or 12th individual, the woman finally called up the telephone company and said, "You keep sending these niggas to my house, and no niggas coming into my house." And to their credit, the phone company said, "Ma'am, we never did send a nigger to your house. We sent you a telephone repairman."
Yeah!